Hello, everybody. This is Marcus Guiliano, your host of In the Weeds, real tales from real restaurateurs or real breweries. And who's joining me today?
Gary Fish with Deschutes Brewery.
Awesome, Gary. So, Gary, where is the brewery and how long have you guys been around?
We're in Bend, Oregon, which Oregon is that state that bends in the middle. So really, if you look at a map of the state of Oregon, put your finger right in the middle of it, that's pretty much where Bend is. We're about 3 hours over the mountains from Portland, the city that most people know of. And we sit on the high desert, outdoorsy community, skiing, fishing, hiking, boating, golfing, anything you want to do outdoors.
Awesome. What inspired you to open the brewery?
Well, it was an offshoot. My father had been in the wine business kind of during the modern renaissance of California wine in the late 60s and early 70s. I've always been in the restaurant business, and the idea of a brew pub concept came up, and it made sense to him. It made sense to me with my background. I was partnered in a restaurant in Salt Lake City at the time, but it wasn't mine. And so, the idea that to capitalize on this new trend in the mid 80s really appealed to both of us. And
wow, mid 80s. You're definitely a pioneer of the movement, mid 80s.
Yeah, we actually opened in 1988. So I began work on it, a year and a half before that. I had a friend of mine that was opening a brew pub in Sacramento. He didn't know any more about the restaurant business than he did the beer business. And so I offered to help him open his restaurant or his brew pub for free, just to kind of see what mistakes he made.
Okay.
Pretty invaluable experience.
So how long did it take you, or how difficult was it in the beginning for you to convince a distributor to carry your beer, just craft beer in general?
Well, we had never anticipated manufacturing and wholesale distribution as part of our original business plan. We were just building a brew pub. So the first wholesaler I ever acquired was by virtue of the fact that I had sold our beer to the local ski resort, and I told him that I wasn't going to be able to deliver the beer because I'm running a restaurant, and asked him for a recommendation for a wholesaler. He pointed me to his favorite wholesaler, and I went and talked to him, and I had already sold the beer, so the wholesaler didn't need to do much except deliver it. The second wholesaler we got was from Portland, and he called me because some tavern owners in Portland had come through on holiday and had the beer, liked it, wanted to pour it in their places in Portland. And that was where, for the next 5 years or so, we never sold any beer. People just came and bought it. All we did was work on producing it and filling orders.
Cool. Very cool. What's one of the worst nightmares in the beer industry, making beer?
Well, making beer is when the realization happens, and it happens to everybody, that this batch of beer is not going to make it. This is not going to meet our standards. It's gone bad. Something has happened to it, and you're going to end up running it down the drain.
How often does something like that happen?
Anymore, not very often. And in the beginning, it was pretty brutal. We were struggling and failing fast. And we got an infection in the brew house, and we ended up dumping 10 straight batches of beer down the drain.
10 straight batches. Wow.
That was a dark time, as we recall that. We were almost out of beer at the bar. We were ready to go under if something didn't happen, and we ended up being able to fix the problem. But, I'm proud of the fact that during that whole time, we never sold a beer we weren't proud of.
That's awesome. So how long in did you actually know that opening the brewery that, hey, this is a success?
Oh, it was a few years, probably 1991, 92, when we had really, we had grown out the back of our brew pub. We had rented a building behind us, running a forklift on it between the two buildings. We were loading semi trucks in the middle of the street. I was getting letters from the city about running an industrial operation in the downtown commercial business district, and apparently I couldn't do that. So we needed to find someplace else to establish a larger manufacturing operation, and we found land about a mile away across town, and started learning about manufacturing and sales. And that was a very steep learning curve, one fraught with all kinds of problems, all kinds of difficulties, and but we persevered. We're here, and now we're having some fun.
Awesome. So now you also run a restaurant with the brewery, correct? It's a brew pub.
We have a brew pub in our original location, downtown Bend, about a mile from where I sit right now. We have a brew pub in Portland that we opened in 2008. And we have a couple of tasting rooms, one here at our manufacturing facility and one in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, Roanoke, Virginia. Okay.
Yeah.
You're on the East Coast?
We had bought some property there, thinking that one day we'd like to build a brewery there. When sales trends were heading north at a good clip, and then the industry has softened. Our sales have softened, so we're content to let that property sit there for a while. We've got a great crew in the tasting room there, and we'll wait to see what the market tells us to do.
Cool. How many states are you currently distributed in?
I think we're in 31 total.
Excellent.
Mostly on the West. The East Coast, we get to Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New Jersey, North Carolina, Virginia. But I think
is there a state out there or a region that's a bigger challenge for you?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges out there. I mean, really, our number one market is in Oregon, and Oregon, the city of Portland, I think, has 200 breweries in it.
Wow.
Bend is a city of 100,000 people, and we have 25 breweries. Those are challenges. We have to continue to remain relevant, continue to compete, continue to make great beer, great brands, and really, I mean, we have 500 families we're responsible for now. So
how do you balance a great product and marketing?
Well, the product comes first. I mean, that always has. I've never claimed to be the smartest guy in any room, but if the beer's not good, nothing else is going to matter. Now, with that being said, we've also learned in the last several years the value of marketing and how you communicate with your customers, with your consumers. And in this incredibly crowded and incredibly noisy market, being able to establish and maintain that communication is fundamental.
Exactly. Yeah. Marketing for us is huge. Great products. You have to have balance of both, unless you have an exorbitant amount of money to convince people that your product is better than it really is. And us independents just don't have a McDonald's advertising budget.
Well, it's interesting, the restaurant business, everybody calls it the service industry, which I think is nonsense. There's no price on the menu for service. There's an implied tip, I guess, but there's no, the only prices on the menu are for food and beverages.
Right.
The idea that, and we all know restaurants that we will go to because the food is awesome, but the service is horrible. You'll never do the opposite. You'll never go to a restaurant because the service is awesome, but the food is horrible.
There's always right. There's one way.
It starts with the product, and it's not that service isn't important. It certainly is. And it's not that marketing isn't important. It certainly is. But the product that people are paying for is what's in the package.
So what are some of the things that is there any significant marketing that you do that say, hey, this really works for marketing, whether it's for getting people in the door at the brew pub locally, or is there some kind of national thing that, hey, say this works really great for marketing, this is a home run for us?
Well, I think we're in the
or is there a certain platform you like to focus on? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Where do you like to focus on?
Well, we live in the era of social media, And right now, I think our number one, we just reviewed this yesterday, in fact, our number one consumer connection is through Instagram. And, we listed there was 6 or 7 different things, including Facebook and LinkedIn and those other things. LinkedIn has become an increasingly important way to communicate with consumers out there, interestingly enough, being kind of a business-to-business platform.
Right.
But, we want to be present in all of those. We want to be there and be part of the conversation as a way of hopefully engaging consumers to pull us off a store shelf or ask for us at their local bar.
Have you ever told anybody that your beer is just not for them?
No, I believe we have a beer for everyone.
There's a beer for everyone.
And we built our reputation on a dark beer, on Black Butte Porter. It's still the largest selling porter in the country. And we built that beer by basically not taking no for an answer. At festivals, where I used to do them all the time, people, and particularly women, would come up and a typical order would be, give me the lightest beer you've got. And I'd give them a sample of Black Butte Porter and say, okay, but here, first try this. Oh, no, I don't like dark beer. I know. I'm getting your beer, but here, try it. It's free. And I figure we were about 80% conversion rate on those people. And even women, women have been treated so miserably in the beer industry. They're not allowed to like anything that's darker than almost clear, that's insipidly sweet or so light as to not have any flavor at all. That once they realize that they really enjoy a dark beer, it's an incredibly empowering thing.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You hear the term girly beers or something like that, or fruity beer. That's for the women. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of great women beer drinkers out there. I mean, they're very savvy and they drink awesome beer.
Absolutely. And the beer industry wonders why it can't engage more women with their products.
Right. I mean, when you think of marketing and beer, it's a certain segment of male beer drinkers, a certain age, and yeah. So what's some advice that you would give to a new brewery owner, somebody who's just starting out and wants to open a brewery?
They've already spent the money. They've already built the brewery. Is that what you're talking about? Otherwise, I tell them not to do it.
Yeah, I tell them not to do it. But they're already in the game. They're already in the game. I tell them to focus on the product.
They have an implied contract with the consumer, and that is to provide a really interesting, flavorful beer. The other thing I would tell them is, don't worry about the IPAs. IPAs are 40+% of craft beer category. Everybody's got IPAs. What are you going to bring to the market that the market actually needs or wants? What's going to set you apart from everybody else? Or are you just going to make an IPA, a double IPA, a triple IPA, and a hazy
double NIPA now, a double NIPA.
Yeah, I mean, give me a break. Go do something that represents you and who you are and your perspective on the market. Because otherwise, you're just going to be another also-ran. It's just another fast food restaurant.
Awesome. Great advice. Well, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. And we're going to run this on a couple different places because this is a great interview. We're over our 10-minute time limit, but I don't care because you've made some great points here. I'm still going to keep recording here. I'm going to keep recording here and keep going because, like I said, content's content. This is great.
All right.
So do you know the brewery Equilibrium?
The brewery, no.
Have you heard of Equilibrium? It's a brewery here that makes amazing IPAs, and he's a good friend of mine. And he started out in the brewing industry just a few years ago. And little quick story. He walked in one day. We came in out one day after a big beer festival. He goes, "Marcus, what's that heady topper you have?" And I said, "Heady topper." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "What is it?" He doesn't really drink good beer, Pete. And he goes, "I hear so much about it." He goes, "Can I take that home?" And I said, "Yeah, take it home." So he took a can of Heady Topper home. 3 months later, he comes back with a growler, and he goes, "Taste this beer." And I tasted, Where'd you get this? Where'd you go? He goes, "I made it." I go, "Pete, you made this beer?" And he goes, "Yeah." remember that can of Heady Topper you gave me? I said, yeah. He goes, I cloned the yeast and made this beer. I'm like, that's really cool, Pete. I don't know much about beer making, but yeah, you cloned. He goes, do you think I'm onto something? And I said, I think you're onto something. And now he's in the brewery world. He left his scientist job, and now he's a brewer, which I guess you're still kind of a scientist being in the brewery world, right?
Yeah.
Lot of science stuff going on there. So,
Science.
yeah, I mean, so people jump into this industry left and right. We have a guest who comes to the bar all the time, and he's been brewing beer since the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he wants a Corona style beer. But when he made beer, he used to make porters, stouts, all the heavy stuff, the hoppy stuff. And he's just, I want my Corona style beer. So that's what he drinks all the time. And we always make jokes like, Mark, you used to make porters. And this, he goes, I don't want that stuff. I want the lager. He goes, so I said to him last night, I said, why are you drinking lagers? He goes, because it was something I could never successfully make. So I could never successfully make a lager. I could successfully make a porter, all the other ones, but I could never nail down a lager. So that's what I'm drinking. That's what I drink.
Yeah. There was an article in Wall Street Journal late last week that that we're in, and some other breweries here in Bend are in, but it's about the craft brewers' dirty little secret is that so many of them actually drink light domestic American lagers when they're not working. When they're not working,
right? And it's like a wine tasting. We go to wine tastings, and what all the beer reps say. Wine reps. I can't wait to go get a beer across the street.
Well, it takes a lot of good beer to make good wine. Every winemaker knows that.
I like that. That's a good saying. A lot of good beer to make good wine. I really like that.
No.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this. This is very insightful, and thank you for tuning in. And just tell us how people can find you online and brick and mortar.
Well, it's DeschutesBrewery.com. So Deschutes, DESCHUTES brewery.com. Deschutes refers to the river that runs through the middle of town. It's also the name of the county here. They can find us there. We're distributed, like I said, 31 states. If you don't see us, ask for us. That's what I always tell people. And the consumer is king. They're the ones that their local retailers are going to want to pay attention to.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate you being a guest on here. And everybody go check out Deschutes Brewery. And if you're in Oregon, which hopefully I will be there next year, that's one of my planned visits, I will stop by and say hello.
There is a bit of a wine industry out here too. You got to come by and see us.
There sure is. Absolutely.